In this video, I'm going to give you some performance evaluation tips that are going to help you get to the next level and increase your chances of getting that raise. Hey everyone, I'm Victoria. I'm a medical coder, auditor, educator, and content creator, and I've had over a decade of experience both receiving and giving performance evaluations in a variety of systems. If you want to know how to make yours better, I'm going to give some tips on what could potentially make or break your performance evaluation. So without further ado, let's get started. Now let me first start out by saying that your annual performance evaluation really should never be a surprise. It's a very poor reflection on leadership if you get in there and find out, oh, you've been making mistakes and they've just been letting it happen, and they don't tell you until you're sitting down for performance evaluation time, or even vice versa, that you've been doing a fantastic job and you've received no feedback until it's time for your annual review. Now, of course, things happen. There's lots of fires to put out, and sometimes we don't get to things the way that we think we should. I've, as a boss, realized my own deficiency once because I was giving performance evaluations to my employees, and I had a couple of them that I gave glowing reviews to and received feedback, and they said, I didn't realize that you regarded me quite that highly, Victoria. And I realized that that was really a reflection on myself and that I was not giving the amount of positive feedback throughout the year that I should have been. Now, a lot of organizations will have you do a self-evaluation as part of your employee evaluation. In a way, it kind of makes it easier for management. And sometimes when I've written a really good review for myself, management will almost copy paste exactly what I've written in the past and maybe change it just a little bit. So if you're doing that self-evaluation or you're giving some feedback for your performance evaluation, one of the first places that you should really start is looking at your job description. Because if you're trying to feel like, where am I compared to where I should be, the good baseline for that is your job description. What does it say in your job description that you're supposed to be performing? Especially things like your accuracy level, your attitude, your productivity even. So look at your job description and see, am I fulfilling what is required of me in my job description? And are there areas where I am actually going above and beyond what is in that job description? I've heard people in the past say, hey, my job description says I'm supposed to do X, Y, Z, but I'm actually doing this and this and this. Well, this is the time to bring that up and go, hey, when we're looking at my performance evaluation now and determining am I getting a raise or not, remember how I'm doing X, Y, and Z? Well, look at my job description and it says I'm only supposed to be doing A, B, and C, and I'm doing a lot more than that. So maybe this is a conversation. This is a good time to have that conversation about what is our long-term goals? Am I going to transition into a different role because it's no longer matching what my job description is? And oftentimes they put in there, the other duties as assigned. But if there is a percentage attached to that, like say 10% of your job is supposed to be other duties as assigned, but you're doing 40% of your job, other duties, working specialties maybe that you were not originally intended for, that is your chance to show your boss that and have those conversations that time. And speak to that if you're doing that self-evaluation. Say on there, this is what my job description says I am doing. Not only am I meeting that, but I'm also doing these additional tasks. Or if you're not doing additional tasks, say, hey, I'm already completing these. I need to go to the next level, and I'm really interested and looking forward to, in the future year, doing these tasks as well. And you definitely want to give yourself time to prepare. Do not wait until the last minute. In fact, gathering information to present at your performance evaluation should be kind of a year-long process. So when you get that good feedback, or you get that good audit result, or you have something that was notable, that you have maybe a letter from a provider that says, thank you, you're extremely helpful, or from a practice manager, make sure you save that, put it in a special folder or a special file on your desktop or laptop so that you know where it is, so that you have it. Make the file titled, performance evaluation data, and just put everything in there for each year. You want to make sure that you have that information readily available for these circumstances. It's really important to have that prepared when your evaluation comes, instead of feeling like you maybe need to solicit information from people or feedback. It's one thing to seek feedback. It's another thing to intentionally solicit people in order to get a kind of a favorable performance evaluation. It's really good to have your performance evaluation in the back of your mind throughout the year. So say you're working with a practice manager and they say you're doing a great job in May. You can at that point in time ask them, hey, could you put maybe something in writing or send something to my boss just to let them know how I'm doing, that they have that feedback? Because if you wait until the last minute when your performance evaluation is just about doing, go, oh yeah, hey, could you write something up for me? It then might appear like you are soliciting people for positive feedbacks specifically for the purposes of your performance evaluation. So it's better to kind of get that rolling feedback throughout the year stashed away into a folder so that you have it when performance evaluation time comes. You really need lots of data to back up your claims if you're going to give yourself a very favorable review. So things like the good feedback, things like your productivity levels, things like your accuracy rates. Possibly even things like if you're working overtime. I've been in situations in the past where I was doing all kinds of cool extracurricular coding stuff, but received a lower grade in certain levels of my performance evaluation than my peers because my peers were working overtime and I, as a new mom, could not work a lot of overtime. Now, of course, up to this point, I'm assuming that everything that you're going to be doing is glowing, but what if you have some areas that you're deficient in? We all have weak areas. I'm not great at cardiology coding. That would be an area that if I was having to work in cardiology, I would say, yeah, this is something that I need to work on, I need to improve on. So don't just dismiss those weak areas, but come up with that action plan of what you're going to do to strengthen yourself in those areas. Be honest with yourself. Say, you know what, I can see that maybe I've not done really great on E&M, but I really want to learn because I want to become strong in this. I want to learn more. So I think here's what I can do in the future. I could go to a webinar. I could sit with so-and-so who's a very master level E&M coder. I could do some Medicare sessions, something to work on that, because that's going to be part of your performance evaluation anyway, is your plan for the next year. So if you have a plan identified, you can take that criticism a little bit more gracefully because you've said, yes, while I realize that this is an area that I have to improve on, I already have a plan of how I'm going to attack getting better. But you really do need to be honest with yourself about those areas where you can improve. You don't want to give yourself such a glowing review that it looks like there's nothing you could possibly do better. In fact, I've worked with some organizations that, like, let's say your performance evaluation is a 1 through 5 rating. In order to get a 5, you have to walk on water. Everyone's kind of at a 3 for a baseline. And everyone seems to have different philosophies on that. I've worked with some organizations where if you're meeting expectations, you're a 5. I've worked with some people who they're like, no, meeting expectations is a 3. In order to get a 5, you have to walk on water. And then, of course, there's all kinds of different considerations sometimes between, okay, where do you score and what does that mean as far as, are you getting a raise or not? In larger organizations, it does tend to be fairly technical. In smaller organizations, I think it could be a little bit more informal. And then you also have to consider some of those budgets that you have in healthcare. So I've had certain years, because of having worked through, 2 recessions now probably, I guess, right? That certain years there were no bonuses or raises for anyone, and that was to kind of save jobs. So I've kind of been through the spectrum of some years we don't get any increase or we get a minimal increase, and then some years it's a very substantial increase as well as some performance bonuses because the health system did really, really well. And while we all love to get raises and bonuses, you still want to make sure that you're committing the time to give yourself a good review if you deserve it. Of course, again, we all have areas that we might need to improve on, but give yourself that good review regardless of how much of an increase you may or may not get. Definitely figure out, though, those goals for next year. I've seen some performance evaluations where they might give you a goal. They say, hey, this is everyone's goal for the organization. We all have the same goal for next year. Sometimes they'll have you do a career goal. I've even worked with some organizations that they're like, yeah, we also want you to do a personal goal, which I'm like, okay, personal goal, you want me to lose 5 pounds, read lots of books. Like, what do you want for a personal goal? So I've seen quite a bit of variety of different goals. I think if you're struggling with a goal, a good one to fall back on is always maintaining your CEUs for your certification. That's always a good one if you're feeling like, oh, maybe, I don't want to be too adventurous this next year, maybe an extra certification. But then keep in mind, if something changes and you don't get that certification in that year, your next performance evaluation, you'll have not met your goal. That's why CEUs is kind of always a good one to fall back on. But really think about what your goals are. Is it increasing your network? Is it learning new specialties? Is it that new credential? Is it getting a credential from a different credentialing organization? Or maybe you want to get into a different spectrum, an advanced auditing sort of level. And now my last tip is to follow up after the evaluation. Remember, I said that performance evaluations should never be a surprise. We shouldn't just be scrambling at the last minute to get them done. So just because you've now finished your performance evaluation doesn't mean you sit on it and forget about it for another year. You need to keep getting that feedback, like, hey, maybe check in 3 months later and go, hey, remember how we talked about my performance evaluation that we were going to do this, this, and this? I just wanted to check in. How do you feel that I'm doing? Because I want to make sure that I get a really good review next year or again next year. So I want to make sure that I'm on track to get that. So can we sit down and have that conversation? Do you have 10 minutes to talk with me? Am I meeting my accuracy levels? Am I meeting my productivity levels? What else can I do to make sure that I get that favorable review next year? And actually right now, if your performance evaluation isn't due for a while, maybe kind of talk to your boss about that. Say like, hey, I really want to get a really great performance evaluation this year. Am I on track? What can I do? Like, what would it look like if I got that 5-star walking on water performance evaluation? Can you give me some examples of what that would look like? And that will give you some direction of what you need to do so that in the future you can get that amazing performance evaluation, get that big raise, because man, if you stay with an organization for a while, those raises compound. So yeah, go out there and knock your evaluation out of the park. I hope you found this episode helpful. As always, I'd love to hear your feedback. Did I miss anything? Or do you have a really good way that you are able to take criticism from performance evaluations really gracefully? Definitely let me know in the comments below. Make sure you tune in next time for all of my awesome tips, tricks, and tutorials. I will see you in the next episode. And until then, just keep on coding on.